Radha Shiva Sari Guru Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So you have your own homegrown bhajan band here. Very nice. That's an opulence, a devotional opulence. My name is Badrinarayan. Now, before we do that, we could pretend we're on an Indian bus and everybody move closer. If you feel comfortable, I just want to make sure you can see clearly, and some of these slides are smaller. So I don't think anyone's going to pick your pocket. I think you're okay. Just, if you're comfortable, you move a little closer. So my name is Badrinarayan Swami. I first met Prabhupada in 1969 in Los Angeles, California. Actually, I got a copy of Prabhupada's Gita. That's how I first met, and that's really meeting Prabhupada. And I took initiation from him in January of 71, and I have served as a temple president in a number of places, ISKCON temples, and in 1987, I became a member of ISKCON's international governing body. Just so you know, I should say something. And they usually say long, so I just want to, if I do it myself, it'll be short. Then and I took sannyas. When did I take sannyas? March 2014. In Mayapur in front of Lord Nrsingadev. So I can't change my mind. It won't let me off the hook. Not that I want to. It's sannyasa life is very nice. So that's a little history of me. And the international GBC, Prabhupada, if we have over 900 temples, think about that for a minute. 900 temples, schools, farms, restaurants, tens of thousands of initiated devotees. Our congregational base is in the millions. So it's and going on by Krishna's grace alone. I was in, what is our time? We need a clock. Do we have a visible clock? No. No, but see, I want to monitor it so I don't keep you too long. I forgot to bring my... Oh, thank you, Prabhu. That's a nice garland. Thank you. What kind of flowers are these? Is it really? That's very nice. If you don't, does anybody have a watch? I'll give it back. You know where I live. That watch right there with a big face on it. But will that stay on, or is it going to go? I'm going to have to push the buttons every 5. Oh, that'd be very good. That's exactly what we need. You don't happen to have a laser pointer, do you? Maybe we got a laser. I forgot my laser pointer. So, just for fun, Prabhupada was traveling. And the year was at the old Detroit temple. So probably 74, 75. And 75, because they were going to buy our current temple, Devasadan Mandir. And does he want to give class? He's got a lot to say. So, Prabhupada came early, that's the point. He was going to come, and we had about a week to clean and repair all the things that we should have done all year long, but at least we were going to do it before Prabhupada got there. But all of a sudden he came a week early. So we had to telescope what was going to take about 10 days into 3 days. And I say this in defense of the devotees. because practically nobody had slept rather than a little short nap here and there, you know. So when Prabhupada gave class, he was reading the Chaitanya Charitamrita had just come out. So instead of Bhagavatam class in the morning, he was reading from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And when Prabhupada, the devotees sat down, and Prabhupada, they were fixing up getting his kartals and getting his glasses and, setting up where Prabhupada was going to sit and speak. So the mic was on. And practically all the devotees fell asleep. Because they had, in their defense, it was the first time they'd really rested their bones. And there was 3 or 4 Radha Damodar buses were there, so there were a lot of brahmacharis, sannyasis, temple presidents, so many people. Oh, here's my nemesis. I would have fallen asleep too, but I was cooking in the kitchen. I was helping with Prabhupada's breakfast. But I had things ordered and someone else was there. So I went upstairs for a moment to see Srila Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana. There we go. So the very intelligent father or grandfather knows what to do. So I turned around the corner. I saw that practically sannyasis were conked out next to each other. Husband and wives were leaning on each other, devotees bobbing for apples, they're doing that, thing. And Prabhupada had started the class by that time. And he said, he was talking about causeless mercy. Causeless mercy, Prabhupada said, that if you walk down the road and you find a bag of gold, it's just sitting there and there's no name, no address, no one around. It's causeless mercy. Somebody walks up to you and gives you $3 million. Take. That Prabhupada was describing. It has no generating cause. It's just causeless mercy. And then Prabhupada said, in the same way, this movement is going on by the mercy of Krishna alone. And then he looked over his glasses like this, saw that all of the devotees were asleep. And he said, and that is a fact. That was quite blissful, Prabhupada, he put up with so much, He's a very unlimitedly saintly person. Okay, so the point I wanted to, the purpose, but I promised I would say, who's our aerospace engineer? That's you, right? Okay. I was flying a couple years ago to India. And I was on a flight that goes from LA to Singapore. So it's 18 hours. And I'm sitting in my seat. I was reading Bhagavad Gita, or maybe I was chanting japa. And this Indian gentleman sat down next to me and said, I see that you are a Krishna Bhakta. I'm dressed, I said, way to go, Sherlock Holmes. Okay, he seemed, it's a reasonable question. So I said, yes, I am. He said, well, I am an atheist. And I was thinking, 18 hours next to this guy. This is going to be a long flight. But okay, whatever, Krishna's arrangement. So I asked him, I said, what do you do? He said, I am an aeronautics engineer. And I work for Boeing. I said, okay. He said, and I was on the team that designed the 777 Dreamliner. He's quite proud of it. I said, okay. I said, it's an accomplishment. I said, did you do it all by yourself? He said, oh, no. Well, I was part of a team. I said, okay. How many teams? He said, oh, there was the aeronautics team, there's the electrical team, there's so many different, he just went on, he was about, So how many teams altogether? So he said, and not counting subcontractors, let's make it easy. Let's say it was I think it was 12, but let's say it was 10 teams. I said, how many on a team? he said, about 10 on a team is an average. I said, okay, 10 teams, 10 people, it's 100 people. So I said, let's, not counting subcontractors and all that stuff. At a minimum, it took 100 people to design the 777 Dreamliner. I said, okay, now, you say that you're an atheist. There's no design, there's no behind things. I said, now let's do a little compare and contrast. Krishna says, what is it? Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. That he's the controller of all the planets. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. I said, now let's do a little compare and contrast between Mother Earth, which you say has no designer, and your 777, which you're very proud of being the designer. I said, now, how many people can you put on a... Did anyone know what it is? You can Google it. I don't know. It's at least 200 people. Probably more. Okay. 200 people. What's the population, planet Earth? Depending on what happens. India surpassed China now, isn't it? I think it's 7 billion. Yeah, give or take a billion, Okay. 200. 7 billion. Okay. Now I said, and how fast is your 77 Dreamliner? And if they've got pedal to the metal, I think they can go around 600 miles an hour, something like that. Let's give it to them. 600 miles an hour. Okay. The planet Earth is traveling around the sun at 19,000 miles a second. 19,000 miles a second. 600 miles an hour. Okay. And then I said, and, the Earth is spinning at the same time. Try that in your Dreamliner, So okay, And then I said, and, in all due respect, I said, we got to pay for it, right? You have to, Anybody here ever get a bill from Bhumi Dev, Maybe you get frequent flyer miles along with it, but, we're just spinning along. And we don't even feel our hair being ruffled, we're just moving along, no problem. So I said, in all due respect, sir, they crash sometimes. Does Mother Earth, you ever hear, all right, denizens of Earth, fasten your seatbelts, we need some turbulence, No. And a jet plane, jet fuel, is one of the worst pollutants in the world. The Earth, there's no pollution, there's no carbon footprint, it's flying through, So I said, now you expect me to believe that the 777, which took 100 of the best and brightest brains, and you're very proud of it, and in all due respect, sir, it's brand X. It's got so many flaws, and yet help me with the seamless logic that the Earth, which is a profoundly more, balanced machine, that happened by chance. Help me out. Please explain that to me. And he said, oh, Swami, I have to finish my tea. And that was it. He was off my back for the rest of the flight. I thought, oh, Krishna's mercy, But really, it's a matter of thinking about the thing free from our conditioning and our biases and all that. And if we just honestly look at it, the fact that there's a supreme designer and that we have forms, he should have a form. We have relationships, and the supreme cause of all relationships has no relationships. Is a wallflower, or like watch an aquarium? How long can you watch fish going back and forth, back and forth? So he's just sitting in the sky watching us. He has no activity, no pastimes, no place. Show me the seamless logic. So I just wanted to say that. So what we're going to do here is that every 2 weeks, this is just different GBC members at the beginning. We have every 2 weeks, we have a Zoom call, and we deal with sometimes philosophical issues, sometimes, management. So many temples and devotees and things. And at the beginning of those, every 2 weeks, one of the members of the GBC makes a little 5-minute presentation on what's going on in their area of responsibility. So it's been going on for about 5 times now. These are some of those reports. There's about 25 devotees that have zonal responsibilities. Some of the Minister of Communications, we have a Minister of Education. They don't have zonal responsibilities. So so this is just a sample. This is just the problem with putting this together was that if I included all the amazing things that are going around the world, we'd be here for at least 2 hours, and I'd have more so I just thought I would, like Prabhupada says, from a grain of rice, you test a grain of rice, you can tell the status of the pot. Is it cooked? So this just gives you a sample of what devotees all over in the world are doing. And you're a part of that. You're members of ISKCON. Many of you are initiated devotees. And this is, Portland's not a little island unto itself. We are part of an international society of Vaishnavas pushing forward Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. So I thought you'd like to see what's going on in your movement in other parts of the world. So, Govardhan. So next, I always like this picture. I don't have my laser pointer with me. But we have Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then there's Advaitacharya, and there's a whole line of devotees. So we always say Gaur Bhakta Brinda, the assembly of devotees. So the assemblies of followers of Prabhupada Nugas, and what are they doing around the world? Okay, that's the setup. Next. And just for fun, I focused on this. This is just opened last year. The devotees, of course, this has been a goal to actually get the first Gaudiya Math temple. It was started by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Ultadanga, where everything flowed from. Of course, from Mahaprabhu's birthplace, of course. But this was the first preaching center of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And we've been trying to get it for decades. The devotees finally got it. Radhanath Maharaj was the prime inspiration for raising the funds for it. And some of you may have donated towards it. But this is and you see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in the middle. So take a look at the building. This is September 6th, 1920. This picture was taken. The opening of the Ultadanga Gaudiya Math temple. Next. And this was the condition when ISKCON finally managed to purchase it. It was abandoned and full of rubbish. You get an idea of the thing. Next. This is what the interior looked like. And if you look, you see that door? I want you to note that broken out transom or whatever you call it above the door. But it was just full of garbage, abandoned. The roof had caved in. Next. This is what it looks like now. It's restored exactly. It's lovingly restored in pristine condition to exactly how it was in 1920. It's probably in better condition. Okay, next. This is another angle, and it's all done in 1920 Bengali style. I mean, they researched so many photographs and so many things. So it was really, it's a top-line historical renovation. Next. This is the inside. You see that nice transom over the door? That's that place we saw. That was the inside. It was all full of trash and no roof. It's the exact same place. Okay, next. This is the interior court. It's all done 1920 Bengali style. Next. And you can go there. You can go there. They love to have visitors. These are all rare documents, photo history. There's a picture of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Some other time, you remind me how he met the governor of Bengal. And there was the viceroy, and right under the viceroy in the British Raj was the governor of Bengal at the time. And he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And anyway, it's a whole story. Remind me to tell during Prasadam, I can tell you. So there's all kinds of photos. His name was, anyway, it doesn't matter. Next. This is a copy of the first of the original Nadia Prakash. This was the daily newspaper that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta used to put out and his disciples would distribute. It's the first copy. Next. This is the Tulsi Garden, and it's got those classic Bengali-style, bas reliefs along the wall of Mahaprabhu's pastimes. It's very wonderful. Next. This is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's bedroom, completely restored. Next. And we all know the famous scene where Prabhupada came and met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said to Prabhupada and his friend, Narendra, what was it? Malik, Narendra Malik. And first thing he said was, you're intelligent, educated young men. Why aren't you spreading Mahaprabhu's mission? And Prabhupada bounced right back. We're a colonial nation. Who will listen to us until we're independent? And Prabhupada said they discussed a little back, and Prabhupada was completely defeated. Prabhupada said it was the first time he was ever defeated in an argument, and he loved it. So here's the scene. Next. That's the actual place on the roof. That's where Prabhupada first met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and got the order, go to the west. Next. Here's a aerial view. Okay, next. And that's where Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was sitting. That's where it all, next. That's where it all started, at that meeting. And Prabhupada took it deep into his heart. Prabhupada met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in 1922, and he took initiation in 1933. So it was at 11 years. And he said, but I was always thinking in my heart, I have met such a saintly person. Okay, so and these are the deities there. These are the deities of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Shri Shri Gandharvika Giridhari. Gandharvika is Radharani, the heavenly singer, best of singers, and of course Giridhari. Next. Now, just for fun, you probably went to Scottish Churches College, which at the time was one of the top, probably the top, because Calcutta was the capital of India at the time. And it was one of the top, if not the top, school in India, college in India, and Prabhupada went to it. So these are the gates entering into and you can see, well, what's the next one? Yeah, well, you go back. It's painted above there. It says, established in 1830. Okay, next. These are walking down the hallway to the classrooms. Prabhupada mentions Professor Urquhart, or Urquhart, I don't know how you pronounce it, Scottish. He mentions how the professor was saying that there's how can there be karma? There's no witness. Prabhupada said, how? No witness? Krishna's in everyone's heart. He's got all the demigods, the wind, everything's the witness, So, next. This is one of the classrooms Prabhupada sat in. One of the beauties of India is it hasn't changed much since 1930, 1920. So you can just imagine Prabhupada as a young student, college student, sitting here and thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. I don't believe that. Next. And they were celebrating the 120th anniversary of the graduation of two of its illustrious alumni. And it was Srila Prabhupada and Nataji, Subhash Chandra Bose, who really, in many ways, was the cause of Indian liberation. It's coming out now, but okay. So they recognized that Prabhupada was something special. Okay, next. Now, just for fun, this is Srila Prabhupada's birthplace. They've finished this, renovating the first, that historical place. And this is the first place. Then the next thing they've managed to purchase is Prabhupada's birthplace. And this is that jackfruit tree. It needs a little work, but it's sprouting out now. The devotees are there. Next. It gives you an idea of what they're starting with. And they're going to renovate it in the same way, in pristine condition, just like where Prabhupada took birth. Next. We're almost done, and then we'll move into ISKCON now. Next, Prabhu. This is the temple at the Mulak compound. And Prabhupada, if you read Lilamrita, if you have not read the Prabhupada Lilamrita, all I can say is why you're torturing yourselves. You are missing one of the most wonderful It's got everything: adventure, romance, drama. It's got villains. It's got everything you could imagine in an epic story. So this is where Prabhupada, as a small boy, used to come and meditate on the beautiful Radha Govinda. This is the place. Next. And here's the deities, Radha Govinda. Prabhupada would visit them daily as a small boy. Okay, next. Now, we're going to move on and start going around the world. Now, this is ISKCON China. I could do a whole presentation, but we don't have time for that. But, mission impossible. But it's mission possible. I mean, again, I don't want to take too much time, but when Tamal Krishnamurti told me personally, when Prabhupada sent him to China, he thought, how was it possible? You know how they got into China? This is under Mao. This is Red China. I mean, it's still communist and all that stuff, but to get in, Dristadumna Maharaj, his father was the chairman of Seagram's whiskey, Seagram's liquors. If you wanted to get into China, you could go in on a package tour. You could go in, and you saw the Great Wall of China, you saw this, that, Forbidden City, and you were in and out. It's like being in North Korea. You had to have a minder, and you had to follow the track. So how could they preach? If you were a businessman, you could roam around. So, I mean, because they would try, how is it possible? Is it mission impossible? So they got business visas as salesmen for Seagram's whiskey, liquor. That's how they got it. And Tamal said, well, bhakti, it's divine intoxication. We're not lying to him, And that's how they got into China. And then they could travel freely. They had to get, I don't know at the time, but they had short visas, but they could go in and out. And everyone wanted to learn English because English is the business language of the world. And you could stand on a box, we say milk crate or whatever, you could stand and speak in English in any public park, and people would gather because they wanted to practice their English, because you can imagine hardly any English speakers there. And so they would just stand up, start to talk about yoga, and talk about the life airs, talk about the soul. They would, and in this way, that's how they started preaching. Just imagine. So next, this is Tamal Krishna Maharaj in China riding his bicycle, in Western dress, because there's no question of Harinam. There was no question of being in a dhoti. So there it is. He's one of our great heroes, and he cracked open under Prabhupada's order. He actually did it. Next. So these are the Gaurnatai deities. They're in China, been served by the devotees since 1996 in Nanning. We have a number of preaching centers. They're houses, but their devotees gather there. They have Sunday festivals. They have the whole program. Don't tell anybody. Next. So there's another picture of the installed deities, Lord Chaitanya. Next, in Nanning. Now, they're very clever. They rent summer retreats, hotels up in the mountains, this and that, and they have a party, birthday party. Whose birthday? Who do you think? Whose birthday? Lord Nrsingadev's birthday, Krishna's birthday. So they do everything that has to be underground. But here they are, they're having a big... Next. And one of the ways they do preaching is they do kirtan at yoga centers, because kirtan and mantra meditation is very popular. And then people naturally ask, well, what does the mantra mean? And what's yoga all about? So they're actually making devotees. Next. This is Gopi Purandana Prabhu, who has passed away, but just an absolute gem of a devotee and a top Sanskrit scholar. So how is it that we can legally distribute our books, not on the street, but in book fairs, that we can legally distribute our books? It's because of Gopi. And this man next to him was I think he may have also passed away. He was the top Confucian scholar in China. And Tamal, through this Avenue in that, he met Gopi Purandana. He was a vegetarian, but a Buddhist vegetarian, which means barley water, tofu, and, boiled sprouts. Tamal sent Gopi with gulab jamans, samosas. You can just imagine kachoris. And this, if you look at his face, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was explaining, this man has just knocked back a huge feast of Krishna Prasadam. You are looking at Buddhist ecstasy. That man, he would have signed anything, But he actually helped us. He went to the Chinese government and explained, no, India's our rival. It's one of the other tigers, Asian tigers, and we have to know their philosophy. We have to know how they think. Otherwise, how will we ever conquer them? This was his angle. So So our Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, and Chaitanya Charitamrita are printed both in Mandarin and what is the other language? Cantonese. Mandarin and Cantonese in China. Printed in China, and they've got a stamp license. Now, recently they've tightened down, and they can't print anymore. They've revoked the license for practically everybody. But intelligent devotees, they have a huge warehouse stocked full of books. And once they're printed, you can distribute your stock. So it's going on. So next. Here's the legally printed Srimad Bhagavatam set. Next. And these are, I had so many pictures of the books. They also have done some small books you can see. Bhagavad Gita, You're Ever Well Sure. Okay, next. And this is the Hong Kong Book Fair. It's one of the largest book fairs in the world. And I think it goes on for 10 days. So here's the devotee booth, and they just distribute books hand over fist. Also with everybody gets a cup of coconut burfi or ladu or something, Next. Prabhupada, I was in Los Angeles, and Prabhupada was taking the feast with the devotees. Prabhupada held up a gulab jamun. He said, we are not nonviolent. He said, these are our bullets. And they have shot down many a materialist's life, as just, Okay, so now we're just for fun, to give you a sample. Albania. Anyone who knows history. First off, I included a map so you know where Albania is. But it used to be one of the screwiest countries in the world. It was a communist dictatorship who thought Brezhnev was too liberal, and that Mao was a pussy, a pussycat, too soft. And they got bomb shelters everywhere because they were waiting for America was going to drop on a town. We didn't even know where Albania was, practically speaking. So we're in Albania now because it's opened up. Next. Here's the devotees. It's 2.8 million people. It's a whole new era, and they're the devotees. They're just about 3 months ago. This devotee is moved there, and they're raising money, and they're going to open a temple, ISKCON, Albania. Next. This is Slovakia. It used to be Czechoslovakia. Now it's Czech Republic in Slovakia. This is our it's 5 almost 5.5 million people. This is out in front of our temple. Next. This is to give you an idea where it is, between Hungary and Czech. You got an idea where it is. Okay, next. And this is our restaurant in Bratislava. 25,000 guests in 2022. They have 3 different restaurants, and they've given shelter to a lot of devotees. Anyway, that's another story about the Ukraine. Next. This is the Czech Republic. It's got 10.5 million people. This is the famous, you'll see next. That gives you an idea of where it is there. It's sandwiched between Germany and Czechoslovakia, Austria. Next. And this is our temple in Prague. Prague is the 5th most visited European capital for tourists. What do we care? Next. This is Ratha Yatra. 8 million tourists per year in Prague, and here's the devotees right in the middle of it with Ratha Yatra. People are having a good time. Next. They asked Prabhupada one time, what do you do for recreation? Prabhupada said, what? He said, our whole movement is recreation. As a sidelight, I got to look at the time. My father retired at, I think he was 67 years old, and they had he sold his business, and they had a retirement dinner. Everybody there's in tuxedos and the whole thing. He was a good man, actually. And I came. He wanted me to come. I was his, youngest son, so I came. I'm dressed. I was a grihast at the time. My father, it was about 250 people. He said, everyone is praising me for, he said, I've worked all my life. I had a paper route when I was 10 years old. He made me have a paper route too. It's good training. I've worked all my life. Now I'm retiring and everybody is congratulating me. He said, but my youngest son is smarter than me. And I'm looking at me in a devotee and thinking, why? He said, he retired at 17 and a half. Nothing, and they're still thinking, he said he joined the Hare Krishna movement. So we work hard for Krishna, but it's out of love. Okay, here's their farm. And I want to, what does it say? 90 adults, 31 farms, 50 children, 26 houses, 12 cows, and 6 oxen. I may say in another slide, but it's not that much land. I think it's probably, I have to convert from hectares, but it's probably around, I don't know, maybe 70 acres with all these people in this development. Check out the next slide. Per year, 10,680 liters of milk, 30 tons of grain, 180 tons of flour, 5.3 tons of vegetables, apple juice, 600 liters, and 400 kilos of honey. Just that group of devotees, just Mother Earth will produce. It takes, you got to have a certain labor mass, devotees working on it. But this is what the earth can produce. It's just amazing. Next. This is Finland. 5.5 million people. This is our temple in Finland. Next. Here's a front view. They've distributed 90,000 books in the Finnish language. They've got preaching centers. There it is. Next. Just now we're mixing it up. This is Los Angeles Temple. I have a bias, I have to admit, on the GBC, and I joined in Laguna Beach, then in LA. This is beautiful Rukmini Dwarkadish. All those, that's a flower outfit. Everything you see is flower petals, including the crowns. So next, this is they're going to wrap this around. That's the temple building and the building next to it. We've already got the permission for this design, and they're now working on the structural engineering, and we're working with the carvers that did the Chowpatty temple. If you've been to Radhanath Maharaj's temple in Chowpatty in Mumbai, it's beautifully carved. These are the same carvers, and the decades of book distribution and Swavasa's expert management, they've saved the money, and that you'll see this in a few years. So Rukmini Dwarkadish are going to get their palace at last. Nice, huh? Next. This is the LA Ratha Yatra, just for fun, which just finished. We had the largest Ratha Yatra ever. I don't have time to go through all the numbers, but it's just a mind blower. The police estimated the crowd, the total crowd, both on the Venice Boardwalk and then in the Venice Beach Boardwalk and in the park, was over 100,000 people saw the parade. We distributed in, how long were we in the free food booth? Anyway, it runs from noon, and I don't want to take too much time, but over 10,000, they lost count at that time, over 10,000 plates of full prasadam. It's a wonderful event. If you ever want to go on a vacation, go to California. It's always the first Sunday in August. Next. This is the temple they're building in our farm in Nutalavan. And everything's up. Everything's there except for the Vimana over the temple mandap and then the Shikar. And those are being constructed right now as we speak. So all over the world. And there's so many, New Jersey, there's so many temples coming up. Next. Just for fun, we've gone to Myanmar, to Burma. I visit there every year for the last 10 years. I could go a whole slideshow. It's a mind blower what's going on there. Next. But recently, the military government came back in. They were out for a few years, although they're behind the scenes. But they came and they really clamped down on everything. It's a very strict Buddhist country. You have to be very, very, it's like being, doing Harinam past Mecca, it's not going to happen. So, but they've got it's called Gita Life. And it's given the whole yatra new life. Because how do we actually crack into the people? When they stopped us, we couldn't do book distribution, we can't do anything. It's very heavy. but that we can hold these the art of living courses based on Bhagavad Gita. It's called Gita Life, and they hold. I think it's about a. What's the next slide? Does it say more? Okay, go back. So I think it's a couple, like 5 or 6 weekends, and then they have different court. You can move on to Chaitanya Charita reading, and we have hundreds of people seriously studying Bhagavad Gita. They get a decree at the end, and so we're making first-class educated devotees in a Buddhist country, heavy, strict country. So it's just because it used to be part of India, Okay, next. Everyone knows this view, Bhaktivedanta Manor. So a little bit from the UK. I mean, you could say so many things. Next. So, do you recognize that lady in the hat? Well, we call her Bhaktin Liz. And I'll tell you why in a minute. I mean, obviously we respect. And who knows where she is now, but she's not in a bad place. This is our school. We have it's called the Avanti School, like when Krishna went to the ashram of Sandapani Muni. And, I mean, the British government is smart. And you can have a religious school because people are doing anyway. But you start a madrasi, and where does that go? They had all that bombing going on in the UK. Still. So how do you have people, you let them educate their children in their religious tradition, but you have to instill in them Western values. And by that they mean democracy, egalitarian, and that kind of stuff. And therefore, you'll see his picture in a minute. There's a devotee named Naveen Krishna. And he has managed to get that government grant. At the government cost, they've built a number of Hare Krishna schools. It's full-on Krishna consciousness. Okay, so for her Diamond Jubilee, Queen Elizabeth came. And the students, those are all devoted kids. And they're chanting different verses. Trinadapi Sunichena. Next, let's go to the next one. Now this is Naveen Krishna, and he's translating for the Queen. And when he explained, he said, this is our ethos. This is the mood of a Krishna Vaishnava. That we treat, we're lower than the straw in the street, offer all respects to others, more taller than the tree. Like that. And she said, well, wouldn't that be just grand? There's another story, 2 stories remind me during Prasadam, how Queen Elizabeth also got a Bhagavad Gita. Yeah, and okay, I'll just say it. Well, I'll say it some of it. You remind me later on. But she was a very pious lady, actually, and liked the devotees. So next, and this is a picture of that Avanti school. That's the temple, Krishna temple, right in the middle of the thing. It's all LEED standard, green standard. And we've got 4 of them now. Next. And the tradition continues. This is at the coronation of King Charles. They all invited about a dozen heads of major religions. Protestant, Catholic, Buddhist, Muslim. And for the Hindu nation, that's our Vishaka Mataji. The president of Bhaktivedanta Manor was in the procession of respected dignity. She's walking down the main, whatever you call it, the aisle or nave of Westminster Abbey. That's a pretty big accomplishment, From the days that Mukunda Maharaj said when they would hold Harinam in London, they had a map of the subway system. And they could usually get in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes of kirtan before the police showed up with a paddy wagon. And they'd be blowing their whistles and everything. And the devotees knew, okay, as soon as you see the police wagon, everybody scattered in different directions. And, well, how do you follow them? And they had, okay, when we run from here, we all get on the subway, and we come up at this place. You hold kirtan 15, 20 minutes, so the police show, everybody runs for a different tunnel, and then they all come back. They had, we meet point 1, point 2, point 3. And for years, we were doing Harinam like that in London. And now here we are going down Westminster Abbey. Okay, next. Now, this is Prabhupada in Russia. And I want to give a little preface, and then you'll see what's going on there now. Okay, next. When Prabhupada arrived, it was I think it was late fall, but I'm not sure. But he saw that, they're all lined up. This is under the Soviet days, And it was like, we all go to Vrindavan, Muslims go to Mecca, good Christians go to Jerusalem. So if you were a Russian communist, you went to see Lenin in his tomb. They had him all there. It was 90% wax. But the guy was, embalmed in a glass case. And very strict. You had to be dead silent, So Prabhupada saw this long line. You can see the line. It was all the way up to the Red Square. They were all lined up to file reverentially past Lenin. And Prabhupada asked, what is this? They said, oh, they're all lined up to see Lenin. Prabhupada said, you know why they're all going to see him? Prabhupada said, to make sure he's dead. It was a miserable. Prabhupada said people were nice, miserable government. So next, it's a little background. So this is just, we're getting reports from different parts. We're all over Russia. But this is the Ural region, which is considered it's the Ural Mountains. It's the division between what they call Europe, and then it's Asia on the other side. So they say, next. So there's so many things they're doing, but they distribute a lot of Prabhupada's books. Okay, you plant the seeds, but you got to water those seeds. So they have a whole program of, it's called conscious reading. And when a person gets a book, explains what's in it, and they bring them, like if you try to bend a tree, you'll snap it. But you can move it slowly, and it will bend. So they have a whole program, news you can use, stress, marital, how to get along, okay. But based on Bhagavad Gita, all from Bhagavad Gita quotes. And people, that makes sense to me, So they move them in increment. Next. But they move them all along these steps. They have public programs. Faculty, I don't know it doesn't mean like we mean like faculty, like staff. It's a Russian translation. It's not quite right. You can see the different groups they have, and they move people from public programs to festivals with devotees to having regular Vaishnava mentoring and counseling, and they get the point to becoming initiated devotees and serving ISKCON. They have thousands of readers. When someone gets a book, they just move you along, to the point of actually becoming an initiated devotee in a very conscious, practical, step-by-step methodology. It's fantastic. Next. And just for fun, in the Ural region, these are the Radha Govinda deities in a city called Omsk, and they're full-size marble deities. Radharani looks like a Russian princess, and very beautiful. Next. When Prabhupada saw Radha Paris Ishwara, the deities in Paris, big, black Krishna and beautiful white Radharani, Prabhupada said all over the world, French women are famous for beauty. Prabhupada said Krishna has come to get some French gopis. So this is just a few snapshots. I have a whole show on Mexico, but this is the Ratha Yatra in Mexico City. Next. This is in Monterrey. There's a river that goes through the city, and it's packed on the weekends. They take Lord Jagannath on a boat ride right down through the center of the city. Everyone's there picnicking and this and that, and the devotees have one boat with Jagannath being worshipped, and the other boat is all, nice, blissful kirtan, and people are, Mexico, they're fiesta. They're ready to go. So it's great. Next. Now we're in Israel. Oh, it looks like it's coming slow. All right. So in Israel, it's a Jewish nation, but we're out there. Next. They've 11 bhakti vrikshas, that's, different regularly meeting home programs, 300 initiated devotees. Last year, 5,984 books distributed, and 100,000 books distributed in 10 years. I put this together at the last minute. I've got a picture of Kirtan in Tel Aviv. I have a little movie. I've got to get some stills out of it. But it's Kirtan in Tel Aviv, which is kind of a resort town. It's by the ocean. And you've got 100 people easily jumping in, young people, chanting, dancing, having a great time in Israel. Next. So you can't see it, but this is, oh, here it's coming slow again. This is Indonesia, which is an archipelago. It's a whole bunch of islands. And we've only got two. We're talking about Jakarta. We're talking about Java. Jakarta's Java, I think. And then Bali. So next, just a few. This is a picture, just a sample of one of the Balinese Indonesian temples. It looks Balinese, doesn't it? It's all hand carved by devotees. And that's our Radha Govinda temple. And I forget somewhere it says what city it's in. Next. These are the deities in that temple, full-size Radha Krishna, beautiful Jagannath deities. Next. And this is book distribution. They have to be careful in the capital, Jakarta, but they distribute to Buddhist nuns. They'll go to army bases. They're invited. It's a Muslim country. They're invited to come and speak. Of course, the airline is a Garuda airline, so there's it was once under the Hindu kings. So they're invited to schools. They give free books at schools. This is a nurses' college. So they're doing big book distribution. Prabhupada said about the books, when he found out his books were being smuggled into Russia in the old days, Prabhupada said the poison is entered and there's no cure. And it worked. Next. So Indonesian yatra numbers, around 4,000 devotees, 25 temples and centers, 5 Ratha Yatras held in various cities just in last year alone. And the temple in Jakarta, the Food for Life program, distribute over 250 full meals of prasadam almost every day. That's you. It's ISKCON. It's our devotees. That's what we're doing. Next. So just for fun, this is the preaching in Japan. Next. This is Banu Maharaj and Kavichandra Maharaj. This is what Tokyo's like. Prabhupada said they're the most materialistic people in the world. It's hard to turn them, Next. This is our temple. It's that whole building. The downstairs is a restaurant, the temple is upstairs, and the rest of it is the ashram. But it says there, 3 minutes walk from Tokyo train station, a hall for the temple, hall for prasadam and seminars, guest rooms, resident ashram, restaurant, and it is financed by the Indian community. It was $1.5 million when it was purchased about 13 years ago. I don't know what it's worth now with Tokyo real estate. But that's our temple in Tokyo. Next. And just these are the deities, Radha Krishna. I could not resist this picture. Every now and then, I don't know when, but they dress them traditional Japanese royalty. This is their style, and I said, way to go, They're just beautiful, aren't they? Full size, whatever it is, like this size. Next. Oh, we've got a repeat. You can skip past this. Mexico. There's the boat. Indonesia. Oh, we got a double repeat. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Okay, stop there. This is the last thing. This is Mongolia. Mongolia, the home of Genghis Khan. I mean, you got to look on a map. Do you know where Mongolia is? No, he's looking at the map, man. It's a smart kid. We are everywhere. My parents, they've passed away now, but they went on a tour. They were, retired. What are you going to do? So they were visiting different places in Europe. And finally, they went to Germany, they went to France, the usual thing. They went Scandinavia, and finally they got to Rome. Then they were in Rome and they were in Genoa. And my mother just sent me a message or whatever, said, "Did you give the devotees our itinerary?" I said, "No." Wherever they went, they're going to see the Black Forest in Germany. They're parked at a rest stop. Devotee knocks on the window. "Hey, you want a book?" My father said, "I gave my son. That's not enough." They were okay. But they're in Rome, and in the piazza under their hotel was the end of the festival site for the Rome Ratha Yatra. It's under their window. I said, "No, you're pious. Krishna's taking care of you." So here's in Mongolia. This is the last thing. Next. So it's home of Genghis Khan. It looks like that. Talk to Indradumna Maharaj. He's visited there a couple times. He's a great adventurer, Indradumna Maharaj. He's been to the mouth of the Amazon River. He's something. Next. 3.5 million people. That is Bhakti by Bhav Maharaj in the middle, he is a wonderful sannyasi. And his area was Mongolia. There's nothing there. There were people, no temple, no ISKCON connection, nothing. And he just kept going and going and going. And These are all the Mongolian devotees. I've got more pictures, but that's enough for now. Okay, next. They're going to build a temple. So this is the architect's rendering. The Mongolian government, they were just their culture was practically beaten into stone, buried under the Soviet era. So they're trying now to bring back. So they say you can build a temple, no problem, but from the outside it has to be Mongolian style. It has to be Mongolian Buddhist style. So the temple looks like that. Okay, that's a pretty picture. I've seen so many pretty pictures. Next. This is the actual construction. This was taken about 3 months ago. They've got the ground floor. The walls are coming. They're actually building that temple. Next. So this is the advertised. Well, I'll say this first. Prabhupada was coming back from his morning walk in Detroit. And when he would come around, it happened 3 times. When he was coming around a corner, and you're going down Jefferson, down to the temple. And Prabhupada would come around this corner and say, that is Mahaprabhu's movement. There was a welfare office, there was a donut shop, and there was a hardware store. We're thinking, huh? Donuts, prasadam distribution, welfare, Mahaprabhu's, was it Namo Badrinarayana, the most merciful? Okay. Next time he came around the corner, Prabhupada said the same thing. This is Mahaprabhu's movement. So the third day, Govardhan, all right, I'm going to get to the bottom of this one. They came around the corner, and Govardhan was the temple president, a wonderful devotee. Govardhan asked, Prabhupada, what are you seeing? And what Prabhupada was seeing was, this is Sherwin-Williams paint, SWP, and that paint can, their slogan is, we cover the world. And Prabhupada was thinking, like you saw that picture in the very beginning of Mahaprabhu and the Kirtan. The Krishna conscious movement is covering the world. Every town and village, as Mahaprabhu predicted, and it is happening. People say, I want to see the mystic power of God. Look at ISKCON. It's mystics going on by the mercy of Krishna alone. Next. We only have 2 more. And you see the guy in the middle? He has no exit, He is not, as they say, a happy camper. I think it's Thoreau says most, I don't know, I think it's Thoreau. Most people lead lives of quiet desperation. There's a thought example. Suppose I have a bucket of water, okay? Bucket of water. It's half full of water. If I put my hand up to my elbow, what happens to the water line? It goes up. Don't overthink it. When I pull my arm out, what happens? To the exact same place. It's as if my hand was never there. So should we just fill up space? I mean, I was married, I raised children. Householders are the backbone of this society. Sannyasis and brahmacharis, we're just playing in the hand of God, and you guys are supporting the whole thing with your hard work. So I'm not diminishing the value of household life at all. If you don't have a good, University of Chicago did a study. It was 30 years, over 10,000 couples, and they followed individuals for 30 years. And they came to the shocking conclusion that children raised with a mother and father, same mother and father, are far more emotionally stable. They have a higher education, a higher economic bracket. Guess what? So householders are essential for raising the next generation of sane. They say a culture is only a generation deep. So householders, they're carrying the culture, they're supporting the temples. So don't get me wrong. But if that's all we do, separate from Krishna consciousness, you get a house, you pay off the mortgage, you raise some kids, you get them to college. It's no easy thing, I admit. But if that's all you do, and when you're dead and gone, 6 months after you're dead and gone, most people cannot remember the sound of your voice. They can't even remember what you looked like, even your direct family, without looking at a picture. So that you put your hand in, it's like if you were never there, you just took up space. Shouldn't we do something to change the world for the better? Everybody wants to leave something behind of value. So next. I love this one. You see the sign there? It says, learn to fly here. See the plane? I mean, obviously something was lost in translation here, you know? So I was in Prabhupada's room one time. And a man kept saying, oh, we're advancing, Swamiji, we're advancing. We made so much advancement. Prabhupada said, your advancement is like a moth into the flames. So sure, we're progressing, but in what direction? You can progress off a cliff. Lemmings are making progress, but what's the result of the thing? So fine, we can advance, we can work hard, and that's all well and good, but without leaving something to better society, a permanent, what was the use? All we did was take up space and eat sandwiches. Next. So I wanted to end there, that we have a chance, as you are doing, put your shoulder to the wheel of Dharma and push forward the Hare Krishna movement, push forward ISKCON. Because these are the kinds of, this is a small sample of things that devotees are doing around the world. You can make a profound difference. Help the TOVP, help the devotees in Ukraine, help your local temple. Here's a novel concept. Buy books and distribute. There's so many ways. Our Prabhu here has that Food for Life program out of his garage, you know? I mean, devotees are wonderful. So we want to do something that our life matters, serve Mahaprabhu's mission, and ISKCON's the best. I was in Prabhupada's room. I'll end here. And a man kept saying, oh, Swamiji, can you tell me, I want to know about Krishna's Leela. You know, he wants to hear Ras Leela, like he's qualified. So, I want to hear, so I want to hear about Krishna's incarnation. Prabhupada slammed his hand down, said, this ISKCON is an incarnation of Krishna, and he's come again to save the world. So why not be part of that? Give our life to that. Okay, we can end there. Thank you very much, Prabhus. And we can hit the lights. We're done. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you. So what do we do now? Well, let me ask you this. We get a framework. Do we have a kirtan after this? Do we have prasadam after this? It's getting a little bit late. What should we do? Where's our host? Getting ready for Food for Life tomorrow? We're a ship adrift. Hey, Prabhuji, is he coming? Prabhu, we're wondering, what is the program? What do we do now? You don't know? It's the case of the blind leading the blind? We just had Kata. So, okay, so when I'm done, we'll then take prasadam. Yeah, okay, very good. So I will take a few questions. We'll go 15 minutes, so don't, anybody's hungry, hang on. You're in the home stretch. Now, as I've said several times, people are shy. Nobody will raise their hand. Everybody's thinking the person next to me is going to ask a question. I have a guy, you want to talk about the definition of cheap? He's an initiated devotee. I will not mention his name. I was at his house. I forget, we were downloading something and it was super slow. And he said to me, why doesn't he upgrade? I said, what do you mean? He was picking my Wi-Fi off the guy next door's service. I said, you want to talk about being cheap, So he was thinking, why doesn't he upgrade? Why don't you upgrade you? But anyway, so everybody's thinking, well, somebody else has got to ask the question, so I don't need to. But we need one brave soul to ask a question, and then everybody thinks, oh, I got a question. So any brave soul got a question? Thank you very much. The answer is no. I'm joking.
That was many, many years ago, right?
The additional story. No, this.
By a little girl.
Well, I'll tell you the other story. And this comes from a pristine, what do they call it? Provenance. This is from Mukunda Maharaj. And I don't know how old she was, but you figure it was when Mukundamar, Shamasundar, Gurudas, Malati, Janaki, and Jamuna, when they were all in England and just getting started. And they'd met the Beatles. George Harrison somehow or other mentioned to Mukunda or Shamasundar that his good friend, who was the sculptor laureate of the UK, was an expert sculptor, and recognized the official sculpt, and they were making a new bust of the Queen to put on the pound note. So in those days, she was sitting for it. Now they do a 360 and they snap photos and you're in and out. But you used to have to sit, right? And they do sketches from different, whatever. So she was going to sit for this sculptor, who was a good friend of George Harrison. So the devotees told Mukunda or Shamasundar, said, give him a Gita, hardbound Gita, to give to the Queen. And the guy was shy, but the devotees are persistent. And George Harrison, he liked to preach. So he gave his friend the Gita and said, you give it to the Queen. So after the meeting of the first, sketch session with the Queen, he said, how did it go? So he said, well, I gave it to her, and she was there for, I think he said 3 hours. And so she was reading Bhagavad Gita. And she was just reading Bhagavad Gita. And at one point she looked up and said, Krishna, the friend of everything. Well, isn't that just grand? I think that's what she said when she really liked something. So she was seriously reading Bhagavad Gita. And, she always had that purse. I always wondered what she got in that purse, I'm just kind of curious, Is it a weapon to, she knock some IRA guy in the head if he tried anything? So what the sculptor reported to George Harrison reported to Mukunda, that when the session was done, he said, I can take that for you, Your Highness. She said, no, that stays with me. She opened up her purse and dropped her hardbound Gita and snapped it shut. So it's highly possible that in that big purse, she's carrying a copy of Bhagavad Gita. I mean, who knows where she is now, but. So that's the answer. I think she got the Gita a couple times, but that one I know from Mukunda. And that she appreciated Krishna, the friend of everyone, She was very devout Christian. Okay, anything else? Only one brave soul in the whole audience? You know how I get somebody to raise their hand? I can tell you, Mataji. We don't take prashad until there's another question. Hands will fly. Yeah, we'll just take a few more minutes. Yeah, Mataji. Yes. A database? The thing is, I'll tell you. I understand what you're asking. I understand well. And I'm thinking about a couple of things I want to say. There's an old joke. Why did you join ISKCON? I didn't like organized religion. And for so many years, we have run on a shoestring of a budget. I was talking to the head of the Archdiocese for San Diego County, San Diego Parish, and their budget is like $120 million a year. It's just their administration. And our budget, I think the annual budget for the GBC, and this includes, the child protection ministry, education ministry, communications, it's like $100,000 a year. It's just, you can't hire a good executive secretary for that amount. So it's been a problem. We have great ideas. Because I've been pushing this for a long time. I said, we're sitting in a car, and we're turning the wheel and we're honking the horn and turning the lights on and off. But we don't have any gas in the tank. We're not going anywhere. I said, we've got to get an ongoing secretariat or staff. Any organization has a ministry. The head minister may come and go, but they've got a support staff. Bureaucracy is not always a pejorative. So Gauranga, Gauranga Prabhu from India, from Chaupati, Radhanath, that guy is fantastic. And he has managed to gather for seed capital last year $250,000. And that money We've hired they're called our executive secretariat. There's a communications, they're all devotees. They're working at discount and retirees, but top professionals in their field. Communications minister, there's an executive secretary to manage the thing. There's a fundraising director because we need to raise money. So we have the best message in the world, most important message of the world. And we've got a funky delivery system, in all honesty, So finally, GBC's approved it. Gauranga stepped up. We've raised some money. And we've started what's called the Global Property Office. Do you know that we do not even know how many temples we have? The estimate is, we've done some effort and tried, but that requires bureaucracy. It's not always a pejorative. We need people to, and the global property, and Prabhupada talks about it in his will, that he wants all the properties recorded, because they're ISKCON, they're Prabhupada's, Krishna's property. We have over 900 schools, farms, restaurants, and temples. We are now nailing down, we want to know, how are they registered? What are the board of directors? Is their insurance current? I mean, we should know, we should have all those, on a dashboard. Should be able to click a continent, click a country, click at the temple, click, are they up to standard on child protection? When was the last time the local child protection team had training? We need that data. Otherwise, you're flying blind. So that is finally, I didn't have time to put that kind of stuff in there. But the estimate is, I don't want to say the wrong number right now, but it's definitely, the value of property in ISKCON is definitely a couple $2 billion. I mean, Mumbai alone is a couple hundred. Tokyo now, who knows what it's worth? The San Diego temple alone, our property, is worth $4.5 million. And it's just two thin lots next to each other. LA, who can imagine what that property is worth? Because they've got those apartments across the street. So we don't know. And along with that will come, we are working on it, Mataji. How many devotees, how many, If you remind me, Anuttama Prabhu and his communications officer, I have in my computer a sheet that how many initiated devotees, I think it's even broken down by continent. I have how many installed deities, how many. If you remind me, you can remind Jai Sachi, and I will send that, and you can circulate and look up. But that's it. It's a notional list, and it's a couple years old. Okay, but a good question. All right, I think we should end now and take. What do you think? I think so. Okay, so off we go, Prabhu, into the wonderful world of Prasadam.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting us. You hear anybody arguing?